There we go.
Awesome. Hopefully technology is working. Welcome everybody. It's up there. Awesome. Okay, so we are live. Welcome everybody that is watching the replay or is watching with us now live. We're here today. I'm here with three of my fellow authors, or should I say international best-selling authors, which has been a huge achievement for us today that we are, I don't know, ladies, are we all very, very excited about that? No, not at all.
Should have got the wine. Yes, so excited. Oh my gosh, blown away.
It's been a bit of a journey. So yeah, we're here today. So I'm here with Steph Lavelle, Lyndall and Shara, and we're going to be talking about showing up with courageous vulnerability. So what does that mean? We're going to look at what it actually means. What is courageous vulnerability? And we're going to, each of the authors are going to share with you their journey with being courageously vulnerable. I think it's fair to say that all of us sharing our stories within Unapologetic is actually us being courageously vulnerable, particularly given the audience is a lot broader than just our immediate, perhaps family and friends. So we're going to look at what courageous vulnerability actually means to us individually, but courageous vulnerability, I mean, everybody's probably very familiar with those two words on their own, what it means to have courage and what it means to be vulnerable. We're going to look at it slightly different today because life experiences can actually shut us down emotionally. I'm sure if you had a chance to read or even listen to some of the stories that have been shared within this group and obviously in the book, there's some fairly challenging life experiences from many of the authors that they've shared within the book. And these experiences can shut us down emotionally. So what is emotion? Emotion, and like many things in life, sometimes hiding in plain sight is actually the true meaning of something. So emotion is literally energy in motion. It moves within it. Often we're just feeling, and that's the mind's way, so the human operating system's way of actually processing what it's actually sensing within its body, so the emotion and energy that's actually moving within our body. So we describe it as a feeling because that gives us an understanding, and it gives us other people a way of understanding what it is that's going on within us, because they can't feel it, only we can. So the energy that in motion is within us. It's within our soul, which is our soul operating system is within us. And so that energy is flowing within our soul operating system. The human operating system and the mind makes sense of it by calling it a feeling. If we don't release the energy that is actually within us, so the emotion that is within us, regardless of what that is, it's vulnerability, whether or not it's anger, frustration, or any of those sort of things. If we don't actually look at the emotion that's within us and that energy, and we keep it there, it remains stuck within our physical body, and it leaves an energetic imprint. And I know for myself, a big part of my healing journey wasn't just using a human operating system of the mind to look at what was underneath the challenges that I'd faced and where I was in my life, but it was also a very, very important part of it was actually looking at the energy and looking at the expression of that and allowing that to actually happen, and also doing work that involved removing that energetic print from within my system. I was actually diagnosed with fibromyalgia 6 years ago, and I've been free of all fibromyalgia symptoms because I looked at that energy within my body in both the mind way and healing ways and modalities to actually remove it. And most doctors will tell you that that's incurable, but it's not. And I'm living proof of that. I've gone from sleeping like a koala all day long and not being able to function, not being physically active, to having a full life, back riding bikes, very dancing once a week, very, very active. So yeah, looking at the emotion side of it is actually a really, really important part of the healing process. If you leave that energetic imprint within your body, it discomfort, disease, disability. Now, I'm not saying that the imprint is responsible for all of those things, but I'm saying certainly from my perspective, fibromyalgia is a disease, and it's an autoimmune disease, and that is something that I was able to clear from looking at the energetic imprint within my body. So we're going to have a look. We're going to have a discussion today, and the authors are going to share their experiences so that we can delve a little bit more into the emotion of vulnerability, because it's from my perspective, I believe that it's the number one foundational thing that really needs to allow it to come out, not just to acknowledge it, but to actually allow that to come out. And there's some really, really simple ways of doing that. Vulnerability is often, and I'll let my fellow authors talk about what vulnerability means to them, but for me, big way of me expressing a lot of my vulnerability is through tears. It's a very, very obvious one, and obviously it's a very simple method of actually clearing that energetic imprint. The society is not always welcoming of emotional expression, particularly in different environments. And also it even comes down to gender as well. Like men are often expected to get angry, and that is found to be somewhat acceptable. And I'm not saying that it's acceptable to do, but there's no surprise is what I mean when I say that if a man gets angry sometimes. And yet if a man cries, it's seen as unusual or uncommon, or and for women, women are probably stereotypically, which is what I'm talking about here, stereotypes. Women are probably stereotypically known to be able to cry quite freely and be quite emotional, and yet anger is probably not an emotion that women are probably first thought of when people think about how a woman expresses. And any emotion should be able to be freely and safely, obviously, safely expressed. It's about the person taking that personal responsibility for it, not actually inflicting it or projecting it outwards onto anybody else, but taking that personal responsibility, but allowing it to actually happen is a really, really important thing. Everything should be welcome. Everything by anybody, regardless of gender. Because if you look at authenticity and what it actually, what is it? It's about being raw. It's about being real. It's about showing up however you are in that moment, exactly as you are, and that being okay. So that's what we're going to look at today. So I'm going to invite each of my fellow authors to speak, and we're going to have a number of different questions and things that we sort of cover. So what I want to start with, and I'll start with you, Lyndall. I wanted to know, what does courageous vulnerability mean to you?
Oh, Penny, thank you. Look, you've sort of described all that emotion and being able to release those emotions. And I know for such a long time throughout my life, I've had to bottle it up. I've had to, pull it all in and, put on a brave face and just keep sort of going through the motions and not allowing anybody to see that I was struggling. So that's a massive thing to sort of let go of, and to just let whatever's happening in the moment come through. And I had a perfect example of it yesterday. I was in the mall at my store, and I was, flicking through, watching, all of our beautiful books going to, number one. And I was bawling. I was just so overwhelmed with the emotion, and I was just sitting in public bawling. And then, somebody showed up that had actually knew me and congratulated me, and I just lost it again. And it was just, this is how I'm feeling. I'm just so overwhelmed with emotion, and I've got to let it out. I've got to express it. And it was such a wonderful feeling to just be witnessed in that, and just to know that it was okay, that I didn't have to, try and wrangle it in or apologize for, being such a sensitive person. I could just, let it be what it needed to be. So that was a really, prominent sort of thing that showed up for me yesterday. And it's been a learning curve. It's been a massive learning curve to be able to connect with my body, because I literally got to the point where I was numb, that I just refused to feel anything at all. Because if I allowed my feelings to take over, I'd just lose it and lost control. And that feeling of losing control and being completely, unable to wrangle it back in, you just keep pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down till the point where you're just numb and you don't feel anything at all. I remember having a conversation with my therapist at the time. I was walking along the beach and I said, I know it's windy and I know that, it's the surf is up and all that sort of thing, but I can't feel anything. It feels like I feel like I'm a ghost and it's just blowing straight through me. I just cannot connect in. And that was such a major part of my healing, to be able to connect into my body and allow myself to just feel what needed to come on. And then I said, being courageous enough to actually allow myself to be seen in those moments, to not try and hide away, to retreat into the cave and, stuff it all down again. So, it's a massive awakening for me, a massive, change in my whole operating system of how I show up. So, yes, it's very challenging. I will definitely say that it's definitely been challenging at times, but gotten to the point where it's just like, well, this is who I am. And if you can't accept me for who I am in this moment, then, maybe you need to sort of move along. So, it's a wonderful feeling to be able to be in that place where you can express yourself and go, well, this is it. This is who I am, and love me, hate me, whatever you want. I'm not going to put on a mask or be somebody else to meet your expectations of what society has placed on me. This is me living my life. Yeah. So
that sounds like that's awfully unapologetic. Thank you. Thank you. Shara, would you like to share with us, what does courageous vulnerability mean to you?
At the moment, it is something that is so incredibly scary to me. It's still a process. I'm still getting there. I have spent so much of my life wearing armor. And, we talked on, what day are we on? Saturday. On Thursday, in our neurodiversity and disability chat, we talked a little bit about masking. And for me, not realizing that I was autistic and that I had ADHD, I learned quite young that the things that I did to express myself, other people didn't cope with. So being quite emotional and obvious in either my fear or my sadness or my joy, I was constantly told that I was too much. I needed to rein it in. I needed to control myself a bit better. But then conversely, I was told I shouldn't bottle it up. How do you balance those things? So, especially as a young child, you can't balance that. And the people that you look up to they're often doing their best. And I know for me, they had been through the same things. So they were passing on what they had learnt and the ways that they had been taught to behave, thinking that this was going to help protect me. Also going through some major trauma like sexual assault as a very young child. For me, I felt a need to have control. So through school, through work, through life, in general, wearing this armor, which might consist of the clothes or even my weight or makeup or the way that I did my hair. And people thought that I was a bit out there and a bit weird, but part of that was being a bit of a spiky echidna, having that protection on to push people away that probably weren't going to accept me for who I am. But even doing that, the people that I did let in would only get so far. I have a friend who has been one of my besties for, I think about 12 years now. And she has told me that she has never really seen me cry. She has seen me get emotional and tear up and then take a breath and stop it. And she said, I've seen you do that so many times. And it's still hard to let go. But being aware of it and making the steps to try and reduce some of those things. I don't hide my stimming anymore. I fidget, I do the things that I need to let go of some of that energy. I don't try to hide when I'm in pain or when I'm tired. I'm asking for help. Even just asking for help, saying that I need something from somebody else was a hugely vulnerable moment for me, because I've been the breadwinner, I've been the main person doing everything. I run the family. I'm the firstborn child, the one that was supposed to be in control and doing everything, and it's just been too much for me. And like you said, with energy, Penny, it's the reason that I have multiple autoimmune conditions. Everything that I've been through is the reason I had breast cancer. All of the things that I've dealt with, and getting to a point where I'm allowing myself to be is making so much difference to my health, physical and mental. And I don't even know how I came to be part of this book.
Oh, have we frozen? We still got you, Shara? Steph and Lyndall, can you hear Shara at all? I can't hear Shara, can you? No, okay.
Frozen.
Okay, so we'll come back to Shara. Oh, she's back.
Yeah. And that was a great picture for it to freeze on.
That's your baptism of fire and vulnerability there, Shara.
I'm sorry, I live in a small country town that doesn't have the best internet, and we've got storms coming through at the moment. So, that's why I dropped out before, and that's what the freeze was about as well.
The technology gremlins are at play up here in Queensland, and it's just started raining out, and I'm outside in the park, but I'm undercover, so I get it. Did you want to finish where you were at? I don't
know what I got to.
Okay.
Getting emotional, starting to cry. That's a huge thing for me, and to do it so publicly, without being at the point of major breakdown, is a big thing for me. And I don't care.
Can I just, and that's unapologetic, but can I also just honour you, because I've sat in 2 roundtables with you now, and you know what? You show up. Mm-hmm. And that's vulnerability and that's courage. So can I just honour you that, I know you say this is new for you, but you're going there. So I take my hat off to you for that.
I don't think we can reduce stigma around mental health, neurodiversity, disability, any of those things without being honest.
Without being vulnerable.
Without being vulnerable.
Absolutely. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Shara. Steph, what does courageous vulnerability mean to you?
Oh, well, you women are awesome, and that was so beautiful to witness. And I'm so glad I decided to join this call at the last second. I jumped out of the pool. I'm like, I'm available now. Let's go. Because this call actually, yeah, it speaks a lot to my chapter. And for me, courageous vulnerability, as Shara was sharing about being too much as a child, that was totally me. And I was extremely sensitive, and I didn't realize till I was actually in my 20s that I was so gifted energetically and psychically connected, and that's why I was so sensitive. All I knew was that I was too much for people, and whenever I was vulnerable, even as a child, it was not received well. I remember there's a photo of me where I'm literally chucking the biggest tantrum, and I just look at my kids now and I think if they're chucking a tantrum, they need something. Sometimes their demands are, ridiculous, and they just need a chat to be like, okay, come back into reality here. Like, let's put it in perspective. But sometimes if a kid's screaming, and this picture of me red-faced screaming, I've undone my swimmers, I'm holding my swimmers out, like just, it's clearly you're not listening to me. And this picture was passed around in my childhood and into my adulthood and laughed at. Remember this? This was Steph as a kid, and so I grew up knowing that my emotions were too much for people. And not only were my emotions too much for people, but my gifts were too much for people. It wasn't spoken about. It wasn't delved into. Had a very sort of conservative family. My bees and the birds talk was, you just don't have sex till you're married. That was it. Like, there was just no vulnerability really. And it's interesting how you both spoke, Lyndall and Shara. I loved when you spoke about masks and armor, because that for me too, how Shara spoke into the people that we looked up to were doing the best that they could. I realized in my family lineage, my mum wasn't always great at showing affection, and neither was my nan. So they were very masculine. They led the family, right? Mm-hmm. So like they were the leaders of the family. So the feminine, that softness sort of wasn't always there, and that emotion, that them role modeling to me that it was okay to be emotional or to show it or to share it or to let someone else sit in it. It was just like, get up, move on, I'm a strong woman. So I grew up to be a really fucking strong woman, and I did it really well for a long time. And now I realize that for me, reprogramming all of that, and for me it's about integrating the emotion and not pushing it away, integrating it, recognizing the lessons. And this is a huge part of what I do with clients, what I do with everyone in one way or another. And what I'm constantly doing for myself is like looking at my situations, looking at my life, and recognizing whatever lesson there is, whatever I need to be learning, whatever wisdom's there for me. And then after I'm done being in that emotion, letting myself be in the emotion, and then when I'm done being in that emotion, integrating the wisdom, mm-hmm. and giving myself permission to be in whatever emotion I need to be in. And so for me, courageous vulnerability brings me back to my sovereignty. It really brings me back to true, authentic self-expression and not shying away from whatever emotion I feel, being able to voice it, and not being the person now, because I went from being the real sensitive kid that fell apart at the drop of a hat and cried all the time to the one that still cried all the time, but I was angry because I was so misunderstood and so felt so unsupported and unimportant that then I was fucking furious. So, later teens, it was like I was just angry. I was angry at everybody, and it just came out as anger. So it was interesting, Penny, when you were talking about anger at the beginning. I was like, I'm both of those scales. I'm the woman that cries and gets angry. And so now to be the woman that feels the anger and can recognize it and voice it in a way that's healthier for everyone around me, and then support myself through it, or ask for support, like you're saying, like asking and receiving, like that's a game changer. And then come back into my truth and power. So my chapter in the book is called Truth and Power. And for me, my truth and power always comes with grace and love for myself first and foremost. So letting myself feel the emotions and loving myself through them, no matter what it is. And as you ladies both shared, you know, being able to be visible in wherever you're at, and like being okay with that, being that unapologetic self, you know, that's like, this is where I'm at, and I'm going to claim it, because that is my sovereignty. That is me coming back to, this is me being totally authentic. So I'm going to be that. So that's, what it is for me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Steph. I think you've all spoken about something that is absolutely on the money when it comes to vulnerability. And you, I think, Lyndall, you put it beautifully in numbness. And also, Shara, when you talked about, you talked about that it's the mental health, it's also the physical health. You know, it's also our spiritual health. And Steph, beautifully, you know, the love for self as well. It's the shutting down of emotions. And I know for myself, I too grew up in a family, adoptive family, so they weren't my biological parents, but there was no emotion. I don't ever remember my parents, my mum and dad, actually having any physical affection towards each other at all. And they were together until I was 15. So I grew up not having any kind of example of emotion like that. And yet I'm extremely empathetic, as Steph spoke into, you know, I have my gifts as well. And I actually shut all of them down. I know, Steph, that was something that you've shared in your chapter as well, like that shutting down of that emotion. And with that came the numbness, to the point where, you know, I literally was not feeling, I was feeling within myself. So that energy that was within me, I was feeling that and that emotion. But my actual physical body, I wasn't feeling emotion. And that became really, really obvious with my new partnership, my new partner, my beautiful new partner, who we've been together nearly 2 years. And I hadn't been in a relationship for 8 years prior to that because of my abusive marriage. And so I was really, really shut down. The fibromyalgia was diagnosed, along with PTSD, along with, you know, a lot of other things from, you know, my life experiences, not just my marriage. So coming into a union, and it's a beautiful, loving, it's an amazing union, but the intimacy side of things, even, you know, I actually wasn't fully feeling my body. I didn't know until I'd gone into this beautiful, loving, safe, supportive, you know, as a relationship should be, a healthy relationship. And so all of these new experiences started to happen, even just from a hug, you know, the physicality of that, the full feeling of that from a heart perspective, not just someone touching. And my skin sensitivity and everything is just so different now, because of, as you beautifully said, Steph, the integration, the acceptance of, you know, okay, this is what it is and I need to actually deal with it. Having the support, that's something else that's been spoken about, having the support of my beautiful partner to go there. And so, and I didn't even know who I was as a woman. So, and, you know, Steph, you talked about having, you know, both the anger and also the sadness. To protect myself and to protect my boys, my boys were really young at the time. This is 11 years ago. They're now 14 and 16. And I had these two, and I was sole parent to them. We were covered by a domestic violence order. We fled interstate. No one knew where we were. So it was this real masculine energy. But I have not fully, and it's something I'm working through at the moment, been able to feel anger despite everything, despite, you know, my ex-husband threatening to burn the house down. I still have, it wasn't anger that I came out with. So, and even though I was living this masculine energy. So I've still got work to do on anger and being able to express that in a healthy way. So I think what you've all raised, you know, that that sensitive awareness, the sensitivity awareness and the energy of it, and actually feeling again, you know, it's really, really important, especially as women, because we're naturally nurturing. That's naturally how we are. So yeah, that's been a really, yeah, thank you, ladies, for what you've brought up just by asking that question, what is courageous vulnerability? So what I want to know now is, after the journey that you've all taken to get to this moment in time, to being the unapologetically authentic, empowered women that you are, that we all are, taking that journey, and how has courageous vulnerability played a role? So you've touched on it a little bit, but how, in your specific journey, the moments of being courageously vulnerable, how have they actually played a role, Linda?
Yeah. Oh, look, I had to. When I left my toxic marriage, I lost probably 95 to 98% of all my contacts. So I was 30 years and my life was so enmeshed in all of those relationships. So I was literally on my own. And when I left, I went into this tiny little 1-bedroom unit, and it was literally like a cave. It was a downstairs, you know, concrete, you know, not a lot of light, and it was literally like a cave. And I could have just sat in there and just sat in my own mess and all the rest of it and just hidden away from the world. But I had to keep showing up. So, and I had to make new connections, and I had to find my tribe. I had to find that support again. So I had to go and do things that I wouldn't normally do, you know, step out of my comfort zone, go to things on my own and just show up and just see, you know, if there was something there that I could then sort of start building on. And that's basically been my motto since that time. It's just like, just keep showing up, because you don't know what opportunities come from that. And I've been so blessed that every time I've done that, you know, something wonderful has come from it that I would never have expected or, you know, experienced if I had keep shutting myself down and just like, this is a safe place. This is, I can't trust anybody. I can only, you know, rely on myself. I have to do it all by myself. I have to be independent, because every time I place trust in somebody, I get let down. So yeah, it was just like, okay, I have to keep going and putting myself into situations and environments that I know that there's, you know, a level of support there. Like, I'm not going to put myself into a toxic environment and expect something wonderful out of it. But to go to things where I go, okay, this looks like, you know, it will give me what I'm looking for, or will give me a little bit of support, or will help me find my way. If it's not really what I'm needing, it might just trigger me or give me the next step or the next little breadcrumb to move me on to where I need to be. And yeah, and that's, I keep coming up and keep showing up. So that's been my journey, and, you know, to keep stepping out. And yeah, it's been a gift. It's definitely been a gift. And I can see now how me showing up has impacted on the people around me, has given them, you know, the courage to go, hang on a minute, you know, you're doing this, and it's something that I really wanted to do, but I didn't feel that I could do it. So giving others permission to, you know, step out of their comfort zone and go, well, you know, got to give it a try. We've only got one go at this. And we don't want to get to that point where I wish I had, or, you know, all those, you know, if only I had, you know, stepped into that space, or if only I had done this, and all those regrets. It's just like, no more regrets in this life. I want to experience it all. And whatever lessons show up for me from that, again, then just learning from them, living them and learning from them, and yeah, just living my life.
It's beautiful. So, Linda, when you are feeling challenged by something, and you can feel the emotion coming up within you, whatever that may be, what do you do to keep moving forward, to show up? What do you do?
Yeah, well, that's been one of the biggest challenges, especially coming into this week. It was just like, oh, I could really go back into those old habits and just shut everything down really, really quickly, like that. Those old habits and patterns and could have very easily reared their head and just shut me right down. So, and Shara mentioned it, asking for support. That was one of my biggest things. It's like I can't ask anybody for support and that comes back into I'm not worthy enough. I don't need to be taking somebody's time away from them, or interfering in their lives. I'm not worth their time and their effort, so I wouldn't ask for support. So that's been massive. And to be able to go, hang on a minute, I'm really not feeling great. I really need somebody else to sort of just give me that little bit of a boost, has been a game changer. And, when we spoke, Pen, before this all come about, and it's just like, yeah, I feel that way too. And it was just enough to sort of just kick me into gear. It's like, yes, you've come this far. You didn't come this far to just come this far. You just got to keep going and stop worrying about that big goal at the end and, that wonderful, euphoric moment, just one step at a time, because that's all I can do. I can only just do the next available step, and just keep on encouraging myself, have people around me that support me, making sure that, I have that community and that tribe around me, is just, it's been phenomenal. So I can't recommend enough, even, we spoke about this in one of the other roundtables, to have just one person that, you can sit with, that can hold space for you and, allow you to unravel or whatever you need to do in that moment, just so that you can let that go and take that next step. So
beautiful. And I'm just, before I come to you, Shara, I just want to touch on something that you raised. You talked about our communication earlier in the week and how this roundtable actually came about. And you talked about this book project. I think it's fair to say the book project, Unapologetic, has actually pushed us all at various moments in various ways. And I certainly, and one of the things I've really enjoyed about being part of the project, and it's one of the things I really enjoy about being in circle, whether it's with women or whether it's men mixed, is that support that we've had. And Tash, as the publisher, has led, she's led that and created that right from the start, that the author group that we've all been part of has been a safe environment for us to be able to openly share whatever it is that we want to share, regardless of what it is, and be witnessed in that. And that's what I did the other day when I was feeling the overwhelmment of, oh my goodness me, it's here. And you reached out, and because of that we actually spoke, and because of us spoking, well, that's a new word, so because of us spoking, we're just making tiredness, we're making it up as we go along. Because of that, I was actually able to move through that very quickly, and I knew that when I woke up the next day I felt completely different. So you had actually held that space for me. I was in a container that was safely held by everybody, particularly the person that was sort of leading the way in Tash. And that actually, the freedom that gave me to be real, to be authentic, but also then to be held, was beautiful. So I want to reflect to you as well. I want to honour you for doing that, and particularly given you just shared that that's been something that, was quite challenging for you. So thank you. Shara, over to you. Do you want to share a bit with us about your journey and courageous vulnerability?
Hopefully things stay a bit more stable for now, both internet. In my head and with the internet. Over the last 5 or so years, I have had a couple of major moments of, I guess, self-awareness. So, like I said, my breast cancer diagnosis was a huge shock. And I was 44, no signs or symptoms. I was in hospital with a lung infection, and my rheumatologist came in and said, we're not quite sure what's going on. How old are you? 44. Oh, have you done a mammogram? Oh, we'll chuck one of those on there as well, because we're going to be doing a whole lot. So that was a shock when that came back. And then part of my treatment was the removal of my ovaries, which is a major shift in how you see yourself as a woman. It's not like going through normal menopause, which we all do at some stage. It was overnight, and it was forced. And well, the surgery was not forced on me. That was my choice. But it was just, I thought I was okay with it. And then when I came out of it, it was like, am I still a woman? Who am I? And that was the first shift for me, starting to do things like attending circles and women's groups, seeking out some guidance and support in exploring my abilities and my sensitivities. And when I started doing oracle readings and things like that, my husband actually came to me at one stage and went, I don't understand this. I don't understand what you're doing. I feel like you're pulling away from me. And what my response to him was, I don't need you to believe in what I do. I just need you to believe in me and trust that this is not about us. This is about me finding me, and doing that will bring us closer. Mm-hmm. And we worked through that, and the relationship has been better. And then so I was doing some stuff, but I was still holding myself in my numb, armored, constructed self of, I have to do these things. So still working, still trying to run everything, still trying to hide who I was at work. And, you know, when you've got that conflict between, you're doing psychic readings on the weekend, but you're working in a corporate environment and trying to fit yourself into this box, it does cause more stress and physical conflict in your body. So I had felt for a long time that my worth was built around my career, my job, the money I brought home, the way I was at work, but also the people that I could support at work, because everything I did was about people and being able to improve things for other people, not necessarily myself. And when there was things that started that I had seen them do to other people to push them in a corner and force them out, that caused me to really strongly arc up and be really stubborn and feel like, no, I can't let them win. when I got to a place of, I don't care about who's winning, I need to do what's right for me. I need to step back from this. And I took the retirement. That was the start of the next major shift. But taking medical retirement at 47, you know, it's not, I'm just going to sit at home and do nothing. I can't do nothing. I'm still, there's too much of me, but I've spent a lot of the last 18 months focusing on my physical and mental health, getting therapies. I have support workers that assist me with things at home and with appointments. I've been studying, and I've been even doing the study that I was doing, which I've talked about before, holistic integrated creative arts therapies. So many of the activities that we worked through were realizations for me, working through how I actually felt about things, doing clay work and just allowing that visceral connection to the earth and bringing back gut memories of things with family, and doing so much of this. It has just been such a shift for me, and I'm really proud of the fact that I can hold my grandson and cry because he's just so beautiful, and I can hold him. I'm not sitting in a wheelchair unable to do anything with him. And if I had stayed in the same headspace that I was, that is where I would be. And I'm not letting anybody else's perception of me hold me in that place. And now I'm crying again. And that's so good. Yeah.
Oh, well, that'll happen when you talk about this, and when you're sitting with your sisters. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's an honor to witness that. Thank you, Shara. Thank you so much. Steph, your journey with courageous vulnerability, goodness me, after your reading last night, I would say you've got a lot to offer on that topic.
Yeah, well, that was pretty courageously vulnerable, to say the least. So, yeah, my story in itself in the book, there's very few people that know the depths of what I've experienced in terms of the domestic violence that I've lived, in terms of lots of things, because, you know, as I've already shared, there's lots of people that had been in my world for a long time that didn't want to know the depths of who I was, you know. And I come across as a really together human who's, you know, pretty confident and settled with who I am. And that's all true. It's all very true. But underneath that, you don't think, oh, shit, she's been bashed and held up against the wall by throat, or she doesn't talk to any of her family, or she's a single mom. Like, you sort of don't think any of that. And I don't think any of that when I talk to amazing women. I'm just like in the moment, taking in who they are. So I love the fact that nobody sort of looks at my life and goes, oh, that's how she should be. It's like, it's okay in my world. It's okay for everyone to break the fucking mold. Like, there is no mold. The mold doesn't exist. And for me, my journey with courageous vulnerability, I feel like it's probably, I mean, it's definitely been a lifelong journey in some ways, but for a long time I wasn't aware of it. And one thing that, you know, stands out for me is that, like the other day in the first roundtable, Naomi said it beautifully when we were talking about unapologetic authenticity. And she said, you know, for me, there was no other option. It was either be authentic or die. And I felt exactly the same way. I've felt exactly the same way in life. And that's now why I live my life the way that I do. It's like, be authentic or die. Well, along with that, whether you want it or not, is get comfortable with being courageously vulnerable. Otherwise, you can't be authentic. So for me, a big piece of what I do and a big piece of how I live now and who I am because of my life experiences is to be radically self-responsible. And it's a huge piece of the work that I do with other people. And therefore, I live by it. You know, I'm not someone that can support people in a certain way and then not walk the walk. So I love what you said, Shara, about how your course, you know, you were doing the processes and going, this is for me too. Like you were unraveling and awakening things within you. So for me, you know, I know that I am the woman I am today because of the experiences that I've had, not in spite of them. And so, you know, when I'm walking that walk and I'm like, okay, I need to be radically self-responsible here because there's no other option. Like I can't be authentic without being radically self-responsible and be the woman that I am. And therefore I have to be vulnerable, whatever that looks like in that moment. And it changes depending on where you're at, who you're with, you know, how I'm feeling within myself. Some days it's like, yep, I'm happy to fall apart and be a mess. Other days I'm like, I know that there's something there that I need to fall apart about or I need to delve into, but I'm actually just not there yet. I'm not at the point where I want to delve into that. So there's this real beautiful dance, I think, with courageous vulnerability in life where you just get to, and as the feminine essence within us as feminine beings, but also as masculine, because we've got both masculine and feminine energies within us. So relevant for any man that's listening as well. For me, you know, I feel like if you're letting your femininity come through, if you're letting that feminine energy just support you in those moments, and be curious. I'm just constantly wanting to be curious with myself now. And that leads me to being able to be radically self-responsible and therefore be authentic and therefore continue to show up, you know, in being vulnerable. And, you know, basically what you see is what you get. So, and I think the other thing for me too is you all spoke about community, and that, you know, for me, I've always sort of had a tribe of people around me throughout my life, no matter what age I was, but I wasn't always very good at keeping them. I would always just let relationships fall apart or friendships fade away. And, you know, it wasn't sort of on my radar. And now I'm not, because I'm not a very needy person, right? With that, you know, that, like you were talking about, Penny, that hyper masculine, and growing up, as we all spoke about, growing up in those families where, you know, we weren't necessarily appreciated for being whatever we were. You grow up to be this really, you know, independent woman, and too much in our masculine generally. So I wasn't always focused on actually being committed in relationships. And so for me, there's been this really beautiful growth over the last probably 8 years of actually building community and maintaining community and having beautiful connections and learning to understand women at a different level instead of from that judgment and competition and all of that shit that is so ingrained in our society, you know. And I know, you know, I grew up with all of that, with people looking at other women and judging them. And so, you know, learning to let that go and just being in love with other women simply for letting them, like, their uniqueness for who they are and just seeing the depths of them, because that's what I wanted. I wanted women to see me. I wanted people to see me for the depth of who I am. So that's been really beautiful and really quite pivotal in me moving from being vulnerable as a victim and being able to be courageously vulnerable in my sovereignty and from a place of like an empowered energy, you know, and feeling strong in being able to be in the emotion and know I don't need to be fixed. And so just sitting in community with people and allowing other women to hold me and share that And, you know, ultimately I then went on to become a Red 10 facilitator. So even listening to you, Shara, talking about your ovaries being removed and questioning where you're at as a woman, you know, the amount of conversations I've had with women about, you know, they've gone through menopause, so they can't come to Red Tents, or, you know, they can't understand things anymore, or whatever. It's not the same for them because they're no longer cycling with the moon. Well, they think they're not, but really we still are, because as Penny spoke about at the beginning, it's all about the energy. So if the energy is moving in the universe, the energy is moving in us, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I love that. I love that you were so courageous in sharing about that and tapping into that, because that's such an important, I think, piece of this conversation, is that for women that, you know, are older and maybe gone through that menopause journey, to understand that they're still valuable and that there's so much wisdom and so much beauty in sitting with them. And some of the best memories of my whole life are sitting with my Nan and Pa for like the last 10 years of their lives and just listening to Nan and Pa speak, you know, and just letting them be them and soaking in their stories and their wisdom, and seeing it, you know, probably taking it in from a different perspective than what they were sharing it, because I'm very different to my family, but at least letting them be them and accepting that and just sitting with them and listening and receiving that. So I think that's a really important piece to speak about too, because I think that generation of women and any woman that's coming into menopause and beyond it, oftentimes just feel like they're not recognized, you know, and giving them permission to be vulnerable in that. That's a fucking huge transition to go through, you know?
Absolutely.
One of the things that actually really helped was, it wasn't a comment to me, about me, working with my youngest psychiatrist as she was starting her transition journey, because my youngest is assigned male at birth, transgender, non-binary.
Yeah.
I said to the psychiatrist one day, I just don't see her as feminine. And he just looked at me and went, she doesn't have to meet your definition of femininity.
No.
Which, after a bit, I processed through my body to be, I don't have to meet what I have defined as being feminine either.
You get to redefine it.
Yeah, I am me. I am still a woman. I am in my feminine strength. And I have so much to give, and I can just be that.
So good.
It's yeah, absolutely. And you raised, and the word power keeps coming up, and that empowerment and all the rest of it. And I think that's a really important discussion as well. So leading on from what you've just been talking about, Steph and Shara, I am perimenopausal. I am in the Marga energy at the moment. And part of my journey over the last 2 years with my partner, and that whole discovery of what does it mean to be feminine, and who am I in that regard, I've done quite a lot of work. And I was spending a lot of time with women that were either 20 years older than me or 20 years younger than me. And I don't have many people around my age. And I was feeling this real loss, and there was I've been in different temples and different things, and I've gone there, and I think it's, we've talked a lot about having that community and that network, and it comes in all different, in the tribe, it comes in all different shapes and sizes and ways. But I think the beauty of being in those and being held and being courageously vulnerable, as you so often, as you all said, the wisdom that's gained from that, the realization that we're not alone, the ability to speak freely and honestly and authentically about what's alive for us in that moment, and allowing ourselves to be held. There's so much healing in that. And there's so much wisdom that we gain from that. But one of the things that, and it's been a big part of my journey, and again, in line with what we've all been talking about, that being shut down, that hiding away, that not the mask, the armor, the echidna. I love that analogy of the echidna, I have to say, Shara. that the echidna, you know, those protection things up. We moved 9 times in 5 years, the young, well, they were young at the time, the boys and I, because we kept getting found. So we had to move for safety. And so, you know, my armor was very, very thick. My tribe was non-existent because we didn't tell people where we actually were in our final move. It was like, nope. So like you spoke about, Lyndall, the tribe was gone and shut down. So, but one of the things that I've been really, you know, in this coming back to being unapologetically, authentically myself, the hardest challenge for me has been to love myself. And Steph spoke about the importance of it earlier. And that's where everything starts. My health was declining. I've got my youngest with special needs. I've got 2 boys who've been through domestic violence, and they've been through their own journey with their father on that as well. It didn't just happen to me. My youngest was also sexually assaulted, not by his father, but he was sexually assaulted. So, you know, they've got their own journey. Now I've lost my train of thought of where I was going with that. But so I used to have medical professionals say to me, you need to look after yourself. I'm like, and I'd just flip it off and go, yeah, great. Where do I have the time to do that? I had to give up my career to be my youngest son's full-time carer. And that was, so I'm 48, and that would be about 9 years ago now. And I identified that as being who I was and my identity and all the rest of it. So I've had this complete unraveling, and on the journey home to myself and the self-love, what I still, and it's work in progress, have found difficult is to realize that just by showing up, just by being real, just by being unapologetic, and just by being authentic, but actually being there and going there, even though there's this 20-year age group either way, I offer something to each of them as well. So it's not just the wisdom that I gain, it's the wisdom that I give. And I have people reflect things, you know, through the program and the work that I do, which is all about journey home to soul, and, you know, unpacking everything and feeling it and understanding it, and, you know, and then shifting the energy and becoming whole again. Or whole, because we're always whole. It's, you know, understanding the impact that you actually have, and it's as simple as actually just being vulnerable, having the courage to do that, you know. So that's the journey that I'm on. Like, I do understand the power of vulnerability 100%. What I am working with is recognizing that when I'm vulnerable, by sitting in circle, by being here, by writing in a book, by running the programs and things that I do, you know, I'm very real in them as well. I can't help it. That's who I am. So if I'm going to be myself, then emotion's going to come. I feel other people's energy, so it's going to come. I have my own deeply. So, you know, I think that there's so much power in it, actually being vulnerable. And as I think all of you have said, you know, giving others the permission to be that as you give it to yourself as well. So yeah, because I was conscious of the time. So, you know, the power of courageous vulnerability. What imparting tips would you like to leave with the witnesses? Well, they are witnesses. Leave with anybody who's watching this, and any live or otherwise. I think I'm losing my mouth. I'll zip it. Over to you, Lyndall.
Oh, look, I think you touched on it, Penny. You know, we talk all about self-care, self-love, and we keep giving and giving and giving to everybody else. And one of the things that I have learned is that you know, and that old analogy, put your own mask on first before you save anybody else, is to keep filling my own cup, because when I am full, I can give from the overflow. And, you know, it's taken me a fair while to understand that I have something to give, that I have something of worth to give. And as you said, speaking in circle, like, I go there to get support, but my story and my sharing and actually speaking up and using my voice can be helpful to somebody else. And regardless of whether, you know, it's in that moment or it's, you know, something that pops up later on down the track in their life, if I don't share what I'm going through, how is anybody else going to, you know, be able to connect and make that, you know, find that in themselves if they haven't seen it somewhere else, if they haven't, if it hasn't been shown to them, you know, whether it's in their family or what have you, or their circle. If they can see it, then they can, you know, integrate it and experience it. So yeah, that's been a major thing for me. So it's something that I do, you know, all the time. I make sure that I'm giving to myself as much as, you know, I give to anybody else. And yeah, it's a gift.
There's your power. Beautiful. Thank you, Lyndall. How about you, Shara? Where's your power with courageous vulnerability, and what would you like to leave as your sort of final messages for people?
I've got so many bits singing around my head from all of this conversation.
Same.
Couple of key points. I have run kids meditation groups for a while, and one of the things that has really stuck with me from my kids is all emotions are valid. It's what you do with them that counts.
Yeah.
And that was one of the kids just speaking up because we were talking about feelings. One of like a 5-year-old, all emotions are valid. But to be able to learn that and really take that in at such a young age is such a powerful thing and such an important thing. And being able to process emotion as you're feeling it means that you're not bottling it. It's not getting stuck inside you. There was some stuff as we were talking about women and menopause and all of that sort of stuff. Having, well, still in menopause 4 years later because it just keeps going and going, but being in my crone power. Crone comes from the word crown. A crone, prior to patriarchal takeover of all of these important things, meant someone who was wise, compassionate, caring, a leader in the community, someone who gave, someone who supported. And I want to own that so much. I want to lead by example for my kids, for the people that are around me, for my grandchildren, just to be yourself, to allow yourself just to live and feel and experience, because that's what we're here to do. That is why our soul has incarnated at this time in this body.
Oh, Shara, so much gold in that. So much gold in that. I'm so excited to hear that you, with young children, are saying to them, every emotion is acceptable. You just, you know, express. It's the way you express it. That is such an important message, and it comes back to how I introduced it, to do with the you know, what society classes acceptable or non-acceptable depending upon your gender. Scrap that, blow that box up. Oh, that excites me. Steph.
So good, man. You women are amazing. Power and vulnerability, courageous vulnerability for me, I think, yeah, like Shara, there's so much in this, and I think I've touched on majority of this already throughout this call. I suppose if anyone's sort of in a place where they're wondering how to either go deeper with their connection to vulnerability or how to harness it, and or if they're not even able to, you know, sort of go there at the minute, like Shara was talking about, you know, how it's difficult on some level. I feel like throughout this call you've really displayed that it's actually not. You're extremely good at it. But you know, if it's new for you, then the place that I would be saying to start is with radical self-responsibility. And through that, you will feel empowered by owning your stuff, by owning who you really are, how you're showing up, what circumstances are happening in your life, and how are you contributing to them. You know, take ownership of that, because once you've owned it, you have the power to create the change there. And in that, it's trust me, it will be challenging, and that's okay. So stay very curious. You know, when we think about radical self-responsibility, it can sometimes feel really quite large and looming, like, fuck, I've got to admit every single thing I've ever done wrong and that I'm shit at and that I'm still doing wrong, and I need to create huge change immediately and just become this better person. It's like, take baby steps, dude. Like, just be with it, be with yourself, and be curious along the way. Start to understand yourself from that different perspective, you know.
Love you, Steph.
gain a new understanding of why you show up the way that you show up. I know for me, last year I did a grief ceremony in December, because I'm someone that processes my emotions really quickly. And I was like thinking to myself, I've been through a lot. And I wonder if I've actually felt everything to the depth of how I need to be feeling things, you know. Like, I've got 2 little humans that I have to look after, so I know that I am very quick to move on at times. And does that mean I'm processing things, even though I know I'm processing things, but am I doing it to the depths? So I did this grief ceremony, and the reason I wanted to do the grief ceremony was that, and also to gain a new relationship between me and grief, to learn to embrace it and interact with it in a different way. And you can do that with every emotion, and that is going to assist in, you know, being able to be courageously vulnerable and empower yourself through that, instead of feeling at victim to your emotions, right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing that that is really important to me and huge, because like you, Penny, you know, I ended up homeless with PTSD, homeless with 2 children, diagnosed with PTSD, all the things. And, you know, I didn't realize until someone pointed out to me, and I've been helping people with mental health stuff for years. And I sort of didn't realize till a psychologist pointed out to me that I had PTSD, and I went, oh shit, now lots of stuff makes sense. Now I know why there's certain noises that really fucking irk me. Now I know why at certain times of the month or the day, or when I'm in a certain emotion, I can't handle the kids doing that thing, but at other times I'm totally cool with it. You know, like, things that made lots of sense. So for me, the other thing would be, a lot of my power has come from learning a lot about the nervous system, which I've been doing for years, learning to understand the nervous system, understanding my nervous system response specifically. So when you were talking before, Penny, about your connection with your new partner and having to sink in and understand how to be vulnerable, you know, and that physical touch, you know, like, it wasn't a thing for you, couldn't feel that element of who you were. For me, my love language is physical touch. So if I'm not being touched, I really notice that in my life. It's like things aren't flowing, right? But then from a nervous system perspective, freeze, fight, flight, or fawn, I'm a fawner. So if I'm really trying to get away from something's really irking me, I know I'm the best mum in the fucking world. Like, I'm doting on anybody and everybody that needs me. I will be there for you. I've got all the time in the world to give to everybody else. All the laundry's done. All the dishes are put away. Like, the house is immaculate. And then I think to myself, what am I putting off? What do I need to look like here? So knowing my nervous system, having that understanding, and then embodying it. So allowing stuff to travel and channel through me, because I'm in touch with myself, I'm self-aware, I'm being radically self-responsible, and I'm curious, right? So therefore, I think, okay, it needs to come down into my body. And whether that's through self-pleasure or getting out in nature, or having a conversation where I voice things with someone that I trust, whatever it is, shaking it off. Like the other day, technology was not my friend, and I had a roundtable to facilitate. I was like, I'm just got to go for a swim. I'll come back to this later, because my head was not functioning anymore. You know?
Yeah.
So being able to then embody what I'm feeling and feel connected to my body, because I didn't do that for a long, long time as well. Definitely shut down for a long time. And I was all good at feeling the emotion, but being connected to my body, understanding how emotions impacted my physical being, how I felt pleasure, how I moved in the world as a physical being, I just was not connected to it. So that's another place for me now, where that's like that deeper layer of power for me, and being truthful and honest with myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely, Steph. I couldn't agree with you more. It's and for my journey and that disconnection from my physical body, you know, I've reconnected with it, and this is where it's really important. So the vulnerability comes in a lot of different ways. So you've got the emotion and the energy inside, but you've also got other ways and of things, and connecting into your feeling body and allowing that and making sure you feel it and that you're not numb is absolutely crucial. You know, you talked just then, Steph, about, you know, getting in the pool. You talked about nature, shaking it off. You know, my partner and I go dancing every Friday night, and for a period there, we were actually dancing 2-3 times a week. And you know, I leave every Friday night, and it's as if I've jumped in a pool. My hair's that wet, my clothes are that wet. Like, I just let go. And I find that has been the most beautiful way of expressing. We actually went dancing on Friday night, absolutely exhausted after, you know, launch day and the rest of it. And we went dancing, and I thought, oh, yeah, I got out of the car and I was stiff. But how's this going to go? Boy, oh boy, did I shake my booty on Friday night. And then at the very end of it, because we do 5 rhythms is what we do on a Friday night, in the stillness, and Jackie, who was on the tunes on Friday night, put on, she read this verse, and that was the end of me. It was this emotion and this deep sobbing from my body came up in my partner's arm, out, you know, and it was like, okay, that's done now. So like you, Steph, some things I process really quickly, others I don't. But that's the key. And so I want to sort of finish it up on that note, because you've all touched, I mean, you do your, Shari, the art work that you do, and that beautiful piece of art that you've done that's sitting behind you there, which is absolutely stunning. It's another form of expression, you know, and actually going there with being vulnerable, yeah, and vulnerability isn't just sadness. Vulnerability can be anger, it can be happiness, it can be, you know, but it's being courageously vulnerable in just expressing it.
Yep.
Not worrying, as you said, Lyndall, about what anyone thinks or feels.
Yeah.
That's their stuff, but this is what you need, and absolutely honoring that. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm sure we could talk about this for a long time, but we have been going for a little, yeah, exactly, forever. And like you, Shara, I find when I have so much going on in my head, I lose my train of thought. That's happened a couple of times, because I'll be like, oh, yes, just from listening to each of you as well. And I just want to thank each of you. I love these roundtables. I love the opportunity for us to share a bit more of us, but also for us as authors to get to know even more about each other beyond just the words that we've put on the pages. And I know that each of us work in these different areas to be sharing the magic and the wisdom that we've got from our journeys of being courageously vulnerable and unapologetically authentic. So thank you. And yeah, just absolute pleasure, ladies. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your first day as an international best-selling author.
You too, darling.
Yay.
For women.
I'm going to go stand in the rain now.
Yes,
Perfect.
Rain.
Perfect. And you're going to feel it.
And it's orange. It was juice. I don't drink alcohol.
I'll go have a champagne for you. I don't have any.
That's good.
I'll have to buy some.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was so good.
Fuck, we could talk for ages. Could we?
I'm so blessed I was part of that. Thank you.
Amazing. Are we still live?
No. Oh, yes, we are still on.
Oops.